Welcome to the Irishman, Englishman and Scotsman Football Podcast. Hello and welcome to the Irishman, Englishman and Scotsman Football Podcast. We have a really special show tonight. Joining me, Republic of Ireland goalkeeper David Forde. David, you're very welcome to the show.
Thanks a million, JP. It's great to be on board and looking forward to this evening, and hello to all the Irish fans and the English fans and the Scots fans out there.
Just the Irish fans that listen to this, Dave, hopefully. Anyway, but thanks a million, buddy. You grew up in Galway. We're the same age, actually, just a few months older than me. I grew up in Kildare, and just, you know, you must have been caught up in the Italian 90 fever that the rest of the country was. Like, that really forced me into playing football, and surely the same with yourself. And you know, was Packy Bonner a big inspiration?
Yeah, absolutely. It was the start of my dream. That's when I started to dream about playing for the boys in green. And it's funny you mention that at the moment, because I'm just finishing off my book, and there's a big chapter in that where I speak about, you know, the family, me grandmother, me brothers, me neighbours. There must have been about 120 of us in the size of this little terraced house, like, you know. So we're all in watching the game, watching the Romanian game, and watching David Leary step up and take that penalty. And, you know, George Hamilton, it's firmly lodged in my mind, you know, a nation holds its breath and scores a goal, and it's just pandemonium. Like, the whole country just absolutely took off and stuff. And I remember watching Packy save, and I just thought, geez, I'd love to play for Ireland. Like, you know, I remember just being so entranced. It was like time stood still, and I was just so engrossed in it. So yeah, such an amazing, powerful experience.
Yeah, it's something I'll never forget. I mean, you don't remember everything from your childhood, but I'll never forget that Timok Day against Bonner, running out of the house, the McCormicks across the road, Noel, the father, ran out with the flag. Everyone ran out. It was just mental. And like, from then on, it was just, that was it for life. You know, they were your superstars. Like, there was no such thing as a half full Lansdowne Road then. They were like, tickets were like gold dust. You had your underage career. You were at Newcastle, Galway, Hibs and Belvedere before you went on to Galway United, and then over to Barrytown in Wales. What was it like for a 21-year-old Galway lad in Wales?
It was certainly interesting, because I was always a late developer as a kid, and I just wasn't. I always had the potential going up to Belvedere at 15, and I probably wasn't the height I am now. Everyone always said, you know, if I was a bit taller and all the other crack, and probably a few pounds lighter, was carrying a bit of puppy fat, like, but I was carrying a bit of timber. But once I got to about 2021, I just shot up. Next thing I woke up one morning like Tom Hanks out of Big, and I was 6'4", and I thought, right, it's time to head across the water now. I feel ready for it. So yeah, I got an opportunity to go across to play in the League of Wales, and at the time, you know, a very close friend of mine, who was Harry Redknapp's chief scout at the time, Stuart Morgan, and I played with his son, Scott, at Galway United, was signing for Barry, and they were looking for a keeper. They were in Europe and things like that. So he said, look, you probably got a better chance of being scouted playing in the League of Wales than you do in the west of Ireland. So yeah, I went over there, and 5 months later, I found myself heading down to East London. So it was an amazing time.
Just kind of brings me on to my next question. So yeah, a year later, you were off to the Premier League in West Ham. You had the likes of David James, Di Canio, Freddie Canute, Joe Cole, Les Ferdinand. I mean, a few years ago, you're playing for Belvedere in Dublin, and you're in the dressing room with these lads. You must have been a bit starstruck.
Yeah, it was insane. It was absolutely insane. I remember Kenny Brown was my manager at Barrytown, and he was ex West Ham, and his dad played for West Ham, and he had those connections. And I remember him just driving me down. He drives me into Chadwell Heath, the training ground in East London. And you're driving down the street and you wouldn't actually think there's a training ground down here. You know, it's like something out of EastEnders and used car salesmen and all this kind of thing. Like, next thing you find a training ground. Yeah, exactly. You're waiting for the little three-wheeler to come around the corner.
Oh, David.
Yeah. All right, Rod Knight. And so he, I remember just driving through the gates, and I seen cars that I could only dream of as a young kid. Like, you know, there was Ferraris and all sorts, and you thought, Jesus, this is just I've just gone to a whole new realm here, a whole new world. And it was very daunting, to be honest. You know, it was pretty frightening stuff. And then to just go in and start training with these men and absolute masters like Di Canio. What he could do with the football was nothing short of astonishing, you know. He was an absolute magician, an absolute wizard with the football. So yeah, to get to train with him, and then, you know, David James was a hero of mine growing up as a kid. So to get to work with your hero was pretty special, and he was a fantastic, a terrific goalkeeper.
Yeah, I mean, Di Canio was an absolute genius. I'll never forget that volley he scored. I mean, now for the next 5 years, you had more moves than a chess player. Derry City, Barnet, Galway again, Derry again, Cardiff, Luton, and Bournemouth. But you finally found your feet at Millwall, where you made 299 appearances. You won the playoff final at Wembley in 2010 and became a club legend at Millwall. Why was Millwall the club where it all seemed to work out, where it all seemed to stick?
Yeah, there was definitely a bit of the Queen's Gambit going on there. Like, you know, there was definitely
Very good.
serious moves around that chessboard and around the country, and like that, you know, I've had some fantastic clubs and some great moves and stuff, but there was just something very appealing. There was something very inspiring about going to Millwall, and I definitely think it probably triggered from when you're a young kid, like, you know, when you have your little Panini stickers and you get to collect the players, and all of a sudden, like what you said earlier on, and it goes back to the start, to the context of the conversation we had, when you look at the greats of Mick McCarthy, Tony Cascarino, and these are all Millwall connections. So there was always a connection with Millwall, and so I always had an affiliation. I always felt there was just a knowing, or there was a real deep sense of connection with the club. So once I went there, it was just like, forgive the pun, like, you know, just the glove fit, and yeah, just absolutely took off, and I just so enjoyed my time there. It was an amazing time in my career, and it was probably the first time as well since I got to the UK that manager Kenny Jackett turned around and he installed in me in his belief in terms of, you actually are my number one goalkeeper and stuff. So yeah, I just went in there, and I was at a stage in my career where I was hungry, I was desperate to do well, and I still hadn't achieved, and I was 28 at that stage, which pretty old for a footballer, but still pretty young for a goalkeeper. I was at that cusp. I was at that kind of point of no return. It's either sink or swim here. So I still had my ambition to play. That was always my driving force, was to play for Ireland. And, you know, thankfully a few years later, with the work and the dedication and everything else that I put into it, I managed to get into the squad.
What was it like getting that call from Trappatoni? Or what was it, Manuela? Remember Manuela, the translator? I met her in Poland, met her a few times around Europe, actually, because obviously Trapp couldn't, you know, speak English too good. We had him here, actually, in Salzburg before he went to Ireland. And did you know when all the reporters came over, David, to ask us, you know, the Irish expats about Trappatoni?
Yeah.
They lost 7-1 at home to Rapid Vienna. So, you know, that was, I think, Trapp's last game. But what was it like getting the call? It must have been frightening and unbelievable at the same time.
Yeah, well, what actually transpired was it wasn't actually Trappatoni, like you said. It was Manuela. No, I'm only joking. It was, but he was so clever. Like, you know, I used to love Trappatoni, and I know I'll go back to it in a second. But he used to be like, you know, no comprende when results were going bad. Like, you know, couldn't understand the thing, and then he'd be chatting to us. Not a problem. Great English, you know.
Really?
So he was yeah, he great English. He was cued out. Like, you know, apparently he'd 7 languages or something. And so when I got the phone call, it was actually, we played Burnley away at Turf Moor, and we just beat them 3-0. And I think I'd kept something like I think I was around my 19th or 20th clean sheet in the championship that year.
Wow.
And Alan Kelly was at the game. So Alan Kelly was goalkeeping coach, and next thing we're heading back down the M56 up over the Pennines, and it was a really wet day, and a couple of lads were sat around the table having a game of cards. And next thing, my phone rings, strange number, and I'm thinking, right, do I answer this? Probably answered it because I was on a high after getting the 3 points and delighted to be heading back down the road. And next thing, David, it's Alan Kelly here. Just want to, you know, say well done today, and you've been invited. On behalf of Giovanni, Trappatoni, and Marco Tardelli, you've been called up to the Irish squad. Couldn't believe it. I just stopped. I just paused, and I was just trying to take it all in, and these tears just started welling from my eyes, like, you know. So the lads start looking at me around the poker table, like, you know, they're going, Jesus, Forde here is absolutely crying across the table as someone died. And they're
Oh,
all
that's
afraid to
brilliant, man.
say something like, yeah, they thought someone had died. And next thing I just told them what the phone call was about. And yeah, told the manager and my goalkeeping coach, Tony Burns, whose parents hail from Cork. So he's got the Irish links and roots as well. Like, so he was totally ecstatic. And it was just an amazing phone call to pick up the call and ring your wife and let your kids know, and then ring your mum and dad. And yeah, it was so special. It's hard to describe it, really.
Unbelievable. Now, you made your debut. You come on in the 5-0 hammering of Northern Ireland. I think you're the oldest player, though, to make his debut in a competitive game against Sweden, if I'm right. Now, you went to I went Euro 2012. You know, me obviously being 32 at the time, same age as you. I would have been too really young financially at 22 to go to the World Cup in Japan and Korea, but I made up for it in Poland, and it was one of the best experiences of my life. As a fan, it was unbelievable crack, like, you know, from Gdansk to Poznan and just everywhere, the games and just the Irish taking over and how lovely we were by everyone. I know the results didn't go our way. What was it like as a player? I mean, I remember, like, I was in the team hotel in Gdansk after we lost to Spain, Sopot, yeah. And Shea came down to the elevator, you know, and he looked a bit sheepish. I mean, you know, a lot of us were under the impression and thought that, you know, Shea was a brilliant goalkeeper, but his best years were maybe behind him then. And a lot of people were actually saying, look, David Forde's in great form. Of course, you would come on to make massive contributions to Ireland after, but what was it like in the camp? I mean, you know, it must have been mental compared to anything you know, that much hype and the fans and everything else.
It was absolutely off the Richter scale, because I remember when I first got into the squad, the first thing I was thinking of, right, we are the best fans in the world, and I'd be nothing to make me more proud than getting us all over to a major tournament, like getting us to the Euros. I think it was probably the only second time that the country's been at the Euros. So it was a real drive. There was a real hunger for us all to, you know, we're all pushing in the right direction. And leading up to that, I think we had gone on a ridiculous unbeaten run. Our form was fantastic. I think we had something like 11 or 12 clean sheets. Shea had the vast majority of them. I chipped in with a few when I come on and made me debut and a few different things like that. So the form was really good going to the tournament, but then we were in the absolute group of death. Like, you know, we were in against the Spain and Italy, who were the two finalists, and then Croatia were a top 10 country in the world and stuff. And then we just, I don't know, we probably capitulated a bit, and due to the teams we were playing and the magnitude of it, we just never really performed to the levels that we performed up to the tournament, whether that was burnouts or whatever it was. Like, you know, just the timing wasn't right, but it was still a major success to get to the tournament, and we were probably unlucky with the group. But yeah, it was a phenomenal experience, you know, just to be, we were based in Sopot, and they call it, I think, the Riviera of Poland. Like, it's got the longest wooden pier in Europe or something. It was amazing little town and village.
Lovely spot, yeah.
Yeah, and next thing, there must tens of thousands of Irish people just took over the place. There was just green shirts, absolutely. You couldn't even walk down the street. You know, it was like I don't know if you've ever been in Key Street in Galway on a Friday or Saturday night.
I have, yeah.
Absolutely packed door to door, like, you know. So that's the way it was, and there was you know, people just getting carted all over the town, like, you know. It was amazing.
We stayed at a campsite in Sopot, I have to say. But, you know, I was really surprised. Like you said, the pier and the beach and the whole lot. We were out swimming. We brought a kayak. We got a kayak from Lidl, and two of the lads were locked, and they went out too far, but they were brought back in by the Polish Coast Guard. A lot of stories, but I could go on all night. No, I mean, look, the results weren't great, but the most important thing there, Dave, is you've got us there. You know, the first time since 2002, you've got us like to a tournament, and the results weren't the best, but it was one at the time of my life anyway. I know every other Irish fan would be thankful for that. But the stories do get better. Now, like I said, I've been everywhere supporting Ireland. I was in Gelsenkirchen, and I've got to say, it's one of the worst kips I've ever been in my life. Now, the stadium is lovely, Schalke Stadium, but the actual little town itself was a little concrete kip. Apart from Cardiff,
An industrial town, was it?
it was terrible. Yeah, terrible. We made a mistake of not staying in Dusseldorf, but I remember going into the game anyway, like Germany, the world champions, you know, God, what chance have we got here? And we didn't actually start that bad. I mean, you made some cracking saves one from Tony Cruz. Tony Cruz scored. Now, there was about 10, 11 minutes to go, and Mario Götze, who scored the winner for Germany in the World Cup final, went through and he's one-on-one, and I thought, oh, God, it's over here. And you pulled off this unbelievable save, which I'll never forget as long as I live. And then, obviously, John O'Shea got that goal in the last minute. Wes knocked it over. Somebody knocked it back in, and O'Shea, like, with the outside of his right foot, passed Manuel Neuer into the corner, just erupted. Now, the Germans were gone. There was no one there. The stadium just emptied. There was no bars, nothing. All we found was a kebab shop in Gelsenkirchen that would sell us beers for the rest of the night. You know what I mean? It was a kip. But, people talk about John O'Shea. I will never forget that. But that save you made, Dave, and all the saves you made that night, but that one in particular went a long way to us going to France in the Euro 2016.
Yeah, and I think it was like what you said. It was a pivotal moment, that point away to Germany, to pick up a point against the world champions, and they were by far the best international team in the world at the time. They were superb. The side and team that they have, and I remember just going out to the game, and I thought, right, we even came down the tunnel, and the tunnel was it was done in the shape of a coal mine. It was like a coal mine as you come down the steps, and I was like, what's this? And then got the history of it and stuff, and that was pretty amazing. Then going out to the stadium and you're looking at, right, we're playing against the world champions here. This is going to be a busy night. And I think they had something like 70 something odd, it could have been 80 odd percent possession, and you're just under the caution, the level of concentration and the level of energy to manage that space and keep going. And next thing we found ourselves, it was 0-0 at half time. And I think Darren Gibson hit the crossbar or something? We could have went 1-0 up. But anyhow, we were delighted. 0-0 at half time. We thought, right, we're actually in the game here. The longer this goes on, the greater the pressure. And I remember the manager, Joachim Löw, he was kind of disrespectful to the Irish and disrespectful to us before the game and stuff. And, it definitely galvanized us. It definitely gave us that bit between the teeth. So we're into the game under a bit more pressure. Tony Cruz gets the ball in the edge of the box and he drills one bottom right-hand corner, and I've dived. And I thought it was actually going to hit the post and go wider, but obviously hits the post and goes in behind me, and the noise just erupts, and you think, right, here we go. We just got to stay tight and stay together. So we managed to keep it nice and compact. And I remember just saying to John, like, it was a really, it was an amazing moment. I remember just saying to John, come on, we're still in this, like, let's keep going. And next thing I see John just taking off up the pitch, and I was like, no, I mean, we're still in it. Yeah, we can still get something, but not for you to be going after. And I'm calling them back. And
where are you going?
Yeah, I'm like, where are you off to get back here? And next thing, I think it was a throw in on the right hand side. I think it was a Jeff Hendrick crossed it. Oh no, Wes crossed it.
I think Wes crossed it. Yeah, Wes definitely crossed it.
And then next thing, John's big long right toe sticks out and just slides it past Manuel Neuer, and the place just absolutely erupted. And Jesus, the emotion that came through my body that night, it was like I was on speed or something. Like, it was just absolute electric. Like, it was crazy, and to see the Irish fans in the corner and stuff. And it was probably one of the best nights I had in an Irish shirt, if not the best.
And that save from Mario Götze.
Yeah.
What do you remember about that?
Yeah, I remember. I've got a big backside, so I remember that came in handy, because I think it came off me my right cheek. So, but look, I was always taught, look, whatever part of the body you keep it out of the net by hook or by crook, and I managed to just close the angle down. He came through, and I think it came off me right side or my right hip or somewhere like that. And out over for a corner, and right now we've got a chance, and it just gave everyone a sense of belief. It gave everyone a sense of, right, that could be pivotal, and it did turn out to be the case. So yeah, it was a fantastic moment.
Yeah, there was a lot of moments in the campaign. I was out in Tbilisi for O'Neill and Keane's first game, and Aidan McGeady got that unbelievable goal in the last minute. Then you go on to look at, I remember I was in Faro in Portugal. We were playing Gibraltar, and we're on the bus, and we got the news that Scotland had lost. We're back in it. Obviously, the Shane Long against Germany, but they all counted, and those saves that night, Dave, like, we wouldn't be in France, without you. I got to say, without those saves. So you should be very proud about that. Moving on to O'Neill and Keane, they came in. Of course, Martin O'Neill liked you. He kept you on. What was the difference, apart from the language and obviously the accents, between like an angry Northern Irish man and a Trappatoni Italian? But apart from the accents, what was the difference in the coaching between Trapp and Martin?
Yeah, two very different styles, two very different cultures. Trappatoni, obviously being Italian, and he was very particular. You know, he used to always constant say, you know, every little detail. And I remember talking to him one day, and I used to have some great conversations. I used to find it quite bizarre sometimes, like, you know, walking through the airport or whatever, and Trapp would be walking through, and next thing I just get chatting to him, and he'd start talking about various different games and tournaments and games he lost. And, you know, I was asking about every little detail, and he was telling me that he once lost the Champions League final or a European final on a corner that he didn't work at, in terms of he didn't put, you know, enough emphasis on a short corner or something, and someone nipped in the near post and they lost the European Cup final. So he was pretty hung up on his little details and stuff, and really basics, you know, very practiced a lot of the basics and stuff, like, you know, and was, you know, he was a phenomenal man, phenomenal man, and he was in his 70s at that stage, like, you know, and his hunger and his drive, and him sitting on the sideline or standing on the sideline, and he just barking out orders, and, you know, he'd be in the hotel, and just his observational skills were evident, you know. So yeah, he was totally different then to Martin, where Martin was more about, you know, installing that sense of, right, we've got good players, they're playing at a certain level, and that they have their own level of intelligence, that they can go out and go and win games and stuff, you know. It wasn't as in terms of shape or structure, it wasn't as structured as say Trappatoni was. But then you may argue, you know, that suits some players, that style, and it doesn't suit other players. So it's each to their own, and you know, they're both very successful managers.
Just going back to that again, Dave, did it ever factor in that Trapp wasn't a native English speaker? Was that ever an issue, like, compared to Martin? Like, it was a bonus. Okay, we don't need a translator here. Martin can tell us exactly what we want. Was that ever an issue?
I don't think so. I don't really remember it being an issue at all. I definitely think when you get to that stage of international football, football has its own language, and, you know, by the body language, you know, by the demeanors, it's like a language of itself at that stage, like, you know. So I didn't feel there was a language barrier, not at all. And for us, really, as Irish lads, you know, you don't get any prouder turning up for their country than the Irish players. You know, where the majority of players are absolute patriots, you know, and no more than yourself coming out being an expat. You know what that feeling's like when you do come back to Ireland, and it's such a special feeling arriving back onto the island. It's
Love
such
it,
a
yeah.
powerful experience, yeah, and it just courses through your blood, courses through your veins. And in comparison to other countries, they don't really have that. So yeah, that certainly binds us and connects us. And, you know, when you get to that place, you know, fair enough, you get managers that definitely have an influence on the group, but obviously if it's peer led and peer driven, you're going to have far more successful teams.
Yeah, he always came across as a lovely man. He was loved here in Salzburg. Trapp, he won leagues, he won cups, he won European games. But I remember a few Irish journalists came over, and they went up to meet him at the before the Rapid Vienna game, and his number 2 at that time was Lothar Matthäus. And they said Trapp came out in this beautiful Italian suit. It was like something out of Godfather. And Lothar Matthäus came over in a pair of cowboy boots. And they said he was as dull as a bag of hammers. But, you know, Trapp was all chat and hand movements and great crack. People were sad to see him leave, actually, Salzburg. But I was delighted when he came in, because I knew he would make us, you know, very hard to beat and bring in this core strength, which he did. Like, you know, defensively, we were awesome. Like you said, 10, 11 games unbeaten there, but before the Euros.
Yeah, he was made for the job. He was born on St. Paddy's Day as well. He was born on the 17th
That's
of
true,
March.
yeah. That's true.
You couldn't get anyone better for it, really, could you?
You know, the Germans make fun of him, you know, because he has this saying in German when he was manager of Munich, zwei Flaschen leer, like two empty bottles. But he actually, you know, messed the whole thing up. But no, he's very, very likable character, I got to say, Trapp. And yeah, I'm really glad for Trapp and every one of you that got us to Poland and to France. Right, Dave, what are you up to these days? You said you're writing the book.
Yeah, currently writing my book. Well, I started it probably 5, 6 years ago, maybe 7 years ago now. When I first got in with Ireland and stuff, because I was doing some personal development on myself at the time, and my own mentor at the time was like, right, it might be a good experience to start writing a book. And at the time, I thought, well, who's going to want to read about me? I'm only David Forde or whatever. But as the years went on, I found it very cathartic, and it's been a huge part of my development over the years, from that transition of being a professional footballer into what I'm currently doing now as a coach and mentor, whether that's working with corporate clients, whether that's working with teams, organizations, or working with professional athletes, whoever that is, in terms of people that want to get ahead, that want to achieve their goals and achieve their dreams and aspirations, and eradicating any of those blocks or obstacles that might be in the way from limited thought patterns or whatever that actually is. So using my experience and the years that and the tools that football has given me, plus I went back and studied with the University of Portsmouth when I went on loan down to Portsmouth towards the end of my career, and got a master's in executive coaching and development, and trained with the European Mentoring and Coaching Council. So that's what I'm currently doing with and then started up my company, Pathfinder Coaching and Development. So yeah, it's been an amazing transition, an amazing journey, and it's one that's it's started, and the ball is firmly rolling, and the momentum's getting bigger and bigger all the time, so it's I'm delighted with the way things are at the moment, and how things are going. So to go from being a professional footballer to being a coach and mentor in terms of working on emotional well-being and psychological strength and stuff like that, so it's been pretty special.
That's absolutely brilliant, Dave, that you went down and got the masters. And the mental health is really important these days, especially in COVID time. So it's called Pathfinder Coaching and Development. How do we find you? Have you got a website or?
Yeah, you can find me on you can find me at, my email is david@pathfindercoaching.ie, and the website is pathfindercoaching.ie. And you can find me on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, all the social media outlets, LinkedIn, all the social media outlets. So yeah, I'd love to connect with people and love to hear the stories, and it'd be great to hear from them.
Well, hopefully some of our listeners will pick you up on that, Dave, because it's really important and unbelievable the journey you've been on. From a young lad in Galway growing up, to what you've done, and like you've been to the Euros with Ireland, which a whole generation have passed by that didn't qualify for any tournament, and then, like I said, you have a massive part in us getting to the Euros in France as well, which was absolutely epic. Also, I still have a hangover from 2016. I think I do. No, but David, listen, thanks a million for coming on. And I got to say, on behalf of Ireland fans all over the world, thank you so much for your service to the green jersey.
Thanks a million, JP. It's been such a phenomenal jersey, or a phenomenal journey. And like that, the green jersey is etched in my heart and etched in my soul. It's such a phenomenal time. So I'm an avid Ireland fan myself. So, and I'm still glued to the results and stuff. So I just like to thank you for all your support and help down through the years. It's been magic.
That means an awful lot. Thank you very much, David. David Forde, thank you.
Thanks, JP.
Thank you for listening. If you'd like to hear more of our podcasts, please click on the red subscribe button on the bottom right-hand side. Thank you.